S11E27. That's all we need.
Hello and welcome to another edition of the Tigers Down Under. I'm your host Alex, and with me I've got Logan. How are you, Logan?
Alex, I'm doing a lot better after 3 points in the early hours of Wednesday morning. It was nice to return to winning ways, and feel like as a result it's a more joyful occasion.
Absolutely. I feel like it's been a very wobbly couple of games. What was it? 4 games in a row at home, really, between Cup and League. Chelsea, QPR, which we'll talk about in a second, Bristol City, and it's the other one I'm thinking of. Watford, I suppose, actually. So that was a 0-0 draw, so it wasn't 4 losses in a row, but 3 losses was starting to look a little bit wobbly, a little bit worrying. So to bounce back with that win against Derby was certainly a welcome result yesterday morning. But yeah, we'll start with QPR. I guess, in the context of the Derby game, it's not as concerning as it otherwise might have been, but it was a worrying performance, and one we've kind of gotten used to at home recently, where it feels as if whether it's the weight of expectation for the players or whatever it might be. I know Burnsy on the commentary sort of calling out the fact that there was a lot more passing out from the back, whether that's the players getting a bit nervous or whatever it might be. What was your take on, I guess, the level of the performance, the quality of the performance, and the result itself?
Yeah, look, I think it's a couple of weeks since I've been on, and I think it was just prior to the Chelsea game. And then one of the questions that you asked me at the time was, does it feel like this is a dangerous period? And, can you see any kind of, fractures starting to appear? And I was fairly optimistic. The QPR result was probably the game that made me feel like in many ways I was beginning to eat my words, because realistically, with the heights that we have reached and just some of the quality of football that we've been playing, you really did expect the result against QPR to be a favourable one, at the very least a draw. And so to kind of lose in such a disappointing fashion against a team that, realistic, I don't fancy, certainly not as much as I did against Bristol. I thought that Bristol probably across the border are, arguably a significantly better team, but just a really disappointing result. It looked really shaky, and I thought the fact that it came on the back of that the Chelsea loss, and in the fashion that we lost that game too, it really felt like it was just a really lazy and sloppy performance. If I'd probably explain it that way.
Yeah, and it's interesting actually, because I remember during the last episode that you were on talking about, it might have actually been when you dropped off the stream, funnily enough, but sort of talking about the fact that with all of the new signings coming in, it's almost as if we're now going through another pre-season with those players, getting them up to full fitness, getting them gelled into the side, and sort of settling on the right formation. And really, it felt like in this game, when you're looking at Dow coming off the bench, and to be fair, Lundstrom, who's obviously been here all season, but returning from injury, were probably the two that really felt underdone, fitness-wise, underdone, potentially mentality-wise, I don't know. But when they came on, it just felt like we lost a lot of control in that midfield. And I'll talk about Hedgemetovic again with the Derby game, but I thought him and Slater, especially against QPR, were controlling that midfield so well. And then Slater gets the yellow card, so understandably potentially getting brought off to sort of protect himself from that in that sense. But once they went off, you're left with Dale, you're left with Lundstrom, and they're basically the architects of those 2 goals for QPR late in the game. It does feel a bit as if those new signings have potentially disrupted the side a bit. And we'll talk Derby in a little bit, where it does feel like we've sort of rejigged things, and because I'm sure Jukirovic is feeling it as well. But that QPR performance is certainly a bit disappointing from from a squad chemistry point of view, it felt like.
Yeah, and I think as you mentioned, it did. There was periods of the game where we looked extremely comfortable. I know that obviously there were some sloppy goals conceded, but it just didn't feel like it was a performance where we were going to lose. And then when I guess at the final whistle, when it's 3-1, you sit there thinking, how has that happened? And it was just sloppy mistakes and chemistry changes in the midfield that really was our undoing.
Yeah, and even for that first goal, there's been a lot of discourse around Panda and a bit of debates, either side in terms of whether he's sort of hit a rut of form, so to speak. But I think certainly for that first goal against QPR, the way that he's come out, collected McBurney, really. I mean, it doesn't seem as if there's a QPR player there. So you feel like as the keeper, you kind of, if you're coming out like that, you've really got to be claiming the ball or punching the ball clear, and to be collecting your own striker in the process and leaving basically an open goal for the opposition was really not a great way to start the game.
No, it's somewhat comical. And then I guess that, when that stuff happens so early, it really does kind of set the tone to think, is this going to be one of those days? And as it turned out, it was. So, like I said, I think the quicker we move on from the QPR game, in our short memories, the better.
Yeah, absolutely. Last point on it, though, just Hirakawa obviously now ruled out for the season. Really unfortunate for him. Got the assist in this game, looked reasonably bright. So a real shame for him to be out for the season.
Absolutely. And what a signing he was. So it's just so unfortunate. I think it was also one of those things where, when you watch players who just thoroughly look like they're enjoying their time at the club, not only was he playing with freedom, but he just, I know there was a few things on social media, but it seemed like he just really embraced kind of the whole culture and was enjoying his football and the atmosphere of being around the place. So really unlucky and unfortunate for him, but certainly unfortunate for us too, as he was and proven to be that one of our brightest sparks over the last few weeks.
Yeah, no doubt. Did you have 3 players to give MVP votes to for this one?
I feel like you've mentioned it. Like I thought Slater was pretty solid before he picked up the yellow card. Outside of that, like I really struggle to find positives to talk about. And then maybe there were some. Maybe I was just angry, but I'd give an honourable mention to Slater without a 3-2-1. But I'm happy to match yours.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I had Slater for the 3 votes, and then Hadjimedovic for the 2, and Hirakawa for the 1 vote. I think he's fortunate with the assist in a way, because you sort of look at the replays and it does take a couple of deflections, but I think his attacking intent getting forward was good to see at least. So happy to give him the 1 vote for that one. But we'll talk happier thoughts then. We'll talk Derby from yesterday morning. And it's so funny, right? Because we're talking in the chat before the game that this was probably the least confident I was feeling going into a City game since perhaps the Southampton fixture. And Dan joked that when we're this low in confidence, when we're this expecting a defeat, that's when we come out and actually get a win. And as it was the case with the 4-2 win against Derby, I think it's the first time they've conceded 4 goals since Eustace's first game in charge. So it's a pretty remarkable scoreline in that sense, that they're usually quite a they're defensively solid side. What was your take on the game overall? Because it was a seesawing game, and then it just felt like City went bang in the second half.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the positive for me was Callum back on the score sheet for City. That's probably the highlight for mine.
Nice to see an Aussie on the score sheet.
Nice to see an Aussie and a former player. Still getting it done. So I think, look, yeah, like you mentioned, the first half was very interesting. Super topsy-turvy. Obviously, the own goal to begin, and then they hit back reasonably quickly. But as you mentioned, we went into half time, and then it was kind of like, if we want to like harp on about the QPR result, we really looked lost. The second half, it was more like the City that we've been used to seeing. There seems to be a lot more confidence. And I don't know about you, but there's just something about McBurney scoring that it just excites me. It always feels like when he's on the score sheet, we win. And I'd love to go back and kind of look at the correlation, but with when he scores, how many games we've actually picked up the 3 points. But I kind of felt confident when he scored his goal. I was like, this probably looks like it's heading in the right direction. And then, the way that we finished, or the manner that we finished, was just, it was really pleasing and just a relief, given the like I said, the topsy-turvy period that we've just come out of.
Yeah, and I think it's not just McBurney scoring. I think Joseph starting is another big key indicator in strong City performances. And I thought, whilst he might have not been the most prolific player in terms of touches of the ball, I think his work rate and his effort really does create that space for McBurney and Gelhardt to work into. And It's interesting, right? Because I think when we went up 2-1, you sort of think we're getting in control of the game. It was a really positive spell for City, and then we conceded straight away. And I think there was a natural frustration that crept in at whether we were going to throw the game away again. And it was actually, the crowd stayed really positive. I thought it was really quiet against QPR, and I don't know if that fed into the performance, but against Derby, it felt like it was a really strong, really positive crowd. And I don't know if that was because City were themselves getting forward a lot. It's sort of that chicken and the egg, right? Where you go, oh, we've lost Logan again. Hopefully he'll be back in a second. But it does feel like it's a bit of a chicken and the egg sometimes with City, with the crowd, and whether it's, the crowd is silent or the crowd's getting on the players' backs and they get a bit tetchy and they're passing the ball sideways as a result, or whether the crowd is getting frustrated as a result of the crowd of the players getting tetchy. So it does feel like. Sorry, I was just saying, Logan, it's sometimes hard to know whether the crowd get frustrated with the players because they're passing sideways and backwards, or if the players start passing sideways and backwards because the crowd's getting frustrated and edgy. So it was good to see against Derby, at least, that the intent seemed to be there to get it forward a lot more. There was a lot more energy in the performance, and that was really reflected in the crowd. Yeah,
absolutely. I also think that it's probably the fact that Derby are, I dare say, a more dangerous opponent as far as the top six goes. And I think that it really did feel like one of those, I guess, a traditional 6-pointer. And I know that there's still a long way to go, and it's starting to count points is fairly redundant this far out. However, it is a team that I do expect to kind of be there or thereabouts, and so I do kind of feel that the crowd may have felt that more so than the QPR game, for whatever reason, just felt extremely flat. I do agree with you. So so nice to turn it around in the fashion that we did.
Yeah, and speaking of turning it around, I thought Egan's turn and shot to take the lead in that second half was it was a turn made for a striker. So I think he's been learning off Ollie with that sort of turn and finish. So it's a very smart finish.
Well, it's very clever indeed. In fact, a spoiler alert, I think he will pick up one of my match points because of it.
Yeah, no, very nice. And then Kumas rounding it out. I thought it was, I think, getting that fourth goal, like you said, in terms of Ollie always scoring, it does feel as if when we have these sorts of performances, it was sort of like the Millwall performance as well. Joseph got a couple of goals and then Ollie got on the score sheet to round things out. It kind of capped off the performance. Just saying it capped off the performance really to get a goal for Kumas to finish off the game in such a fashion, to really put it beyond doubt. And great for his confidence as well. Got the goal against Blackburn, but to kick on and get another goal, and hopefully that really gets him kind of going in a City shirt.
Oh, absolutely. It's like 2 goals in 3-4 games. When he started, it was a very quality finish too. So there's never it's not a bad situation to have when you've got someone like him chipping in with goals, and then when we talk about Gelhardt and how prolific McBurney's been. It's nice to have the kind of reliable scorers, and in some ways it's starting to become a deeper list of people who can chip in. So he's certainly playing his part, and it's impressed since he arrived at the club.
Yeah, and then just on a sour note, we just talked about Hirakawa with the QPR game. It looks like Giles is out for at least 6 weeks with that hamstring again. You wouldn't want to put a line through him, but you almost feel like that could be a season ender for him, just from the perspective of getting back to fitness again, wanting to make sure that the hamstring's right to go. Maybe as a silver lining, you sort of put him in cotton wool until a potential playoff campaign, if that's what comes to it. But look, at least there's the positive that we've kind of come through this before with the Famoa or perhaps Coyle at left back as a replacement. Like, we know that we can still pick up results, but it's a massive shame to see him ruled out again.
A massive shame. And Alex, let's not forget that at the start of the season, and even this transfer window, there was huge links with him going to Middlesbrough. And look, to be honest with you, at the start of the season when there was the whispers, I wouldn't have been too upset about it. What a turnaround it's been for him. And I think about the role that he's played, in this particular season. He just seems to be one of the great comeback stories in a City shirt. And fair play to him. I do agree. I'm hugely disappointed to see, this happen to him, and to miss the pointy end of the season.
Yeah, I reckon not since Jakupovic going off on his debut against Chef Wednesday, covering his head, and after that, and the way the fans sort of turned on him. Not since Jakupovic has a player so turned around their reputation at the club, I don't think.
Yeah, no, that's a great shout. Nothing like a yak reference, but
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more. I think I'm so surprised to sit here, this far into the season and be singing Ryan Giles's praises. But it's been a really exceptional campaign for him, and I do hope that he is able to get back and play a further part in the season,
Yeah.
deep in the season.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, I'll throw to you then for your votes for this one.
I think obviously McBurney has to be the three points for me. Like I said, I think he has so much influence when he scores, and the fact that he got on the score sheet. 2 points for me was Egan, and my 1 point I think I'll give to Slater.
Yeah, nice one, nice one. I've actually gone Hadjimetovic for my 3 votes. I thought he had a terrific game. I think especially the last 2 games, and in particular this Derby game, he's really coming into his own in that midfield role. I think there's been times this season where he's not looked, he's been off the pace, or he's been, a bit slow on the ball or anything like that. But I think recently he's really, really starting to cement a place in the starting 11 for me. McBurney for the 2 votes, definitely. I think he's been massive. When he doesn't score, people sort of question whether he's carrying a knock or things like that. But I think, once he's up and scoring, he's full of energy and full of beans. And I think it's also great you see when Kumas scores his goal, McBurney's celebrating just as passionately with him. So I think he must love being around the younger players, lifting them up. Joseph as well. He seems to be a great influence around the club. I gave the 1 vote to Coyle. I thought Coyle filled in really well at left back. I thought he was solid. Maybe not a spectacular performance, but I just think, given the fact that he must be running on fumes, to be fair. Like, he's playing 90 minutes most games, and he's being asked to play right back. He's being asked to play left back. He's all over the place. So I thought it was a good performance from him as well. So I thought he deserved a shout out there.
Yeah, nice.
Okay, well, we'll talk Portsmouth first, and then we've got Ipswich next midweek, which is an absolutely massive game as it's shaping up to be. Portsmouth themselves actually in pretty good form as well. I think they've won 2 of their last 3. They dropped points against who did they play? They lost to Wrexham yesterday morning. But before that, beat Millwall before that, and Charlton, I think it was. So a couple of really good results for them. Pulls them away from the relegation zone, which could play into our hands. Maybe they start to feel a bit safer. I don't know, but it's an interesting game from that perspective. First away game in 5 as well, so it's kind of, in a way, nice to be away from home. It'll be interesting to see if there's any change to the performances from that perspective. And I guess the other benefit with the Derby game was we didn't bring Crooks on, even though I think he was on the bench. So potentially we see him a bit more rested and ready to play a part against Portsmouth.
Yeah, what a huge in he's going to be as well. I think that Crooks is one of those. You mentioned that the chemistry change in the midfield, obviously against QPR, but just to be able to have a veteran character that has such a huge influence on games, coming back, and like you said, the fact that he probably didn't need to be used. I suspect that he's very much, we can safely assume, back to 100% fitness now, and that's a huge in for mine. I'm delighted to see him back.
In that sense, then, would you potentially play him from the start, or is he one that you'd look to bring off the bench in the second half?
Yeah, look, I think that's probably a hard one to kind of gauge from our end. It's like when we talk about what 100% fitness kind of looks like. There's a difference between going, yep, you're good 90 minutes, and or playing the first 60. I think we're more likely to see him come on and play a role, maybe the final 30 or something along those lines. But I'd be really surprised to see him start. But just the fact that he's had that extra time, and they haven't needed or required to kind of rush him back, I think he's a great sign.
Yeah. And I think the benefit as well from that Derby game, I think I was saying it to you the last time you were on, that we've now got an 11, obviously barring Giles, who'll be replaced, and we can talk about who that replacement looks like being. But I'd almost say for the rest of the side, you almost just go the same 11, because you kind of go, we've just won 4-2, we've scored 4 goals, we've looked really sharp, we've looked high energy. I'd have Jakirovic just saying to them again, same again, boys, same level of intensity, same level of effort. with no reasons for that to drop off really amongst the squad. So it's maybe for me, I don't know if you'd throw Famo in at left back again. Like I was saying, I guess that's worked previously for us, or whether you go Coyle and Drame and say that was working for the second half against Derby, and we just go with that.
I think that we're probably likely to see more of Coyle. I think that like you say, he seems to be highly trusted, and that maybe the only real concern is, like you said, the amount of minutes that he's been playing and how the expectation of him to be as busy as he is and to playing 90 minutes twice a week. There has to be a shelf life of that, which may make space for drama, but. I would expect Coyle to be given the nod.
Yeah, fair shout. Okay, well then, in terms of score prediction or confidence in this one, you backing us for the win?
Like I think what you said about the.
Oh, she'll be back in a second. Leave us hanging on the suspense of what the tip is for the game. I think for me at least. You've got to be backing us for the win against Portsmouth. I think heading into this one, it's a game against the side towards the bottom of the table. We're now off the back of a win. We've got a bit of confidence, a bit of wind under our sails. I'd really be hoping we go there and pick up another 3 points ahead of Ipswich. But you were just about to say, Logan.
I think I like the fact that you rightly pointed out that we're away, and I do think that we have looked good on the road. So I'm fairly confident. I can see us winning this game. I think it would probably be 2-0, 2-1. But I expect there to be goals in it, and I do, quietly feel confident that that the momentum that was built in the Derby game will be continued.
And I was just, while you were talking, looking it up, because I did think I saw the stat, and it does stand true that over the last 6 games, we are the best side in the division away from home. So we are top of the away form in the championship. So it's been a while since we've played away from home, so that's a bit out of date as a form guide, but certainly reminds us that we've been a really terrific side away from home. So I'd be hoping for 3 points in this one. Probably like a 2-1 or a 3-1 sort of scoreline. I think I agree with you. I think Portsmouth have goals in them. Segacic seems to be in amongst it for them. I assume he's fit at the moment. Haven't seen him recently, but keep an eye out to see if another Aussie gets on the score sheet against us in this one. We've then got Ipswich next midweek, Wednesday morning on the 4th, 6:45 or whatever it is, our time. Massive game in hand on the top two. If we pick up the 3 points against Portsmouth, it puts us in a really good position to basically be right on Middlesbrough's tail. I think they've got Birmingham this weekend, so it's a big game for them. If they drop points in that one, and if we're beating Portsmouth, it puts us in a really, really tasty position to see what we can do against Ipswich.
It really does. It is kind of what I enjoy about the championship, when you get these runs in and you are playing teams above you on the ladder, and how quickly it changes. Like we've talked at length about the momentum shifts that there is in the championship, and these periods where you do kind of lose 2 games and get a draw, they're not exactly foreign, even to the best teams in the division. So absolutely, mouth-watering opportunity, as you mentioned. And I agree. If we take 3 points against Portsmouth and really kind of see a couple of results go our way, this game is just huge for a game being played in March. Yeah,
I mean, they lost to Wrexham on the weekend 5-3 or whatever it was, that crazy scoreline. Did beat Watford yesterday morning 2-0. Easy to forget as well. Like when we played them, I think we had a couple of injuries as we always do, but held them pretty well for the first 50 or 60 minutes at 0-0. And I think it was Philogene coming off the bench, and of course he got them going, and they ended up running out 2-0 winners in that one. But it does sort of give you the sense that, my sense is that we do pretty well against these really possession-heavy sides. You look at the games against Southampton, we did the double over them, very pass-heavy, very much happy to just kind of play the ball around, be very safe with the ball, where we're very direct. We'll hit them on the counter and really kind of go for the jugular. And I think from memory, McBurney didn't play in the last game against Ipswich, and I think having him fit and ready to go against Ipswich will be a massive difference for us. And I wouldn't sit here and say that I'm confident of a win, but I think we'll give it as good a chance as any. And I really think it's a game that could be set up to suit our style of play.
Yeah, it definitely has the feel of that kind of derby fixture where you're like, oh, it's like I don't know if we're necessarily favourites, but I do approach it with great optimism. Like they just like I do think that they are definitely one of the better teams in the division, and if between as far as automatic promotion goes, they're definitely in the conversation. But I think it's really the kind of telltale sign for us, like. At the moment, we're just talking about playoffs and sneaking into the six, but 6 points this week does a really, really kind of big difference in shifting that picture. And I'm kind of excitedly anticipating to see what happens, because 6 points this weekend, we are right in there with a shout of a top two berth, which I know seems very strange to be talking about in end of February, but the reality is that this is kind of where picking up those points positions you for, for those kind of tricky months.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, like you started the episode by saying, it's a hugely different tone and feel for us than it would have been had we lost to Derby. And I think that 3 points against Derby does wonders for the confidence, not just for, sort of halting that stuttering run of form, but I think it sort of relaunches us and resets us for these coming games. And I think it's come at a really good time for us with these two games to come. And like you say, I mean, if it's 6 points in these two games, it really turns things around. And look, even if it's only sort of 3 points potentially against Portsmouth and a loss against Ipswich, I think looking at the bigger picture and saying, if we can secure that top six position first and foremost, and then see what we can do about a top two place, I think that's the more important part of it. So to give a little bit of context to that, or a little bit of, just not raising the expectations too high with demanding the 6 points from these two games. I don't think it's the end of the world if we don't beat Ipswich, but I just think that's a huge opportunity there, and I really hope that City can do their all and take as much chance or take as much of the opportunity as they can.
Yeah, and like you say, it's 6 points, but also, not forgetting the fact that we still do have that game in hand that could prove crucial.
Well, this is it. The Ipswich game is that game in hand.
Sorry, that's what what I was meaning was if you do pick up your 2 points, if you pick up your two victories, get your 6 points, and it is against Ipswich. Like you say, where it makes it so tricky for the table can be a bit misleading when you see these like 2 games in hand and 6 points clear. I'm fascinated. Back-to-back wins at this kind of stage of the season really can shift the picture really quickly. I saw Millwall jumped us this morning with a victory, and I was like, oh, go check the form guide of Millwall, and even them, there's like sticking around, which a lot of the conversation is kind of about Middlesbrough, Ipswich being the real threats, but it is such a jam-packed table, right down to 12th or 13th, I think. So it's a huge week in the context of the season.
And that's the other significance of beating Derby, really, because if we'd lost that game to Derby, all of a sudden we're sitting there on 54 points, level with Wrexham, where, yes, we have a game in hand, but it's against Ipswich. And all of a sudden we're really falling back into that pack of teams, even just competing for the sixth. So to put that gap on Derby, so they're now sitting down in 11th, as you said, it was a real 6-pointer in that sense. And it just means that, yes, if you do pick up the 3 or the 6 points this week and you start to really lengthen that gap to 7th and 8th, and as I said, you're sort of just starting to lock in that top 6 place first of all. Once you've got that confidence that you're kind of saying, yes, at a minimum we're top 6, then there's that more, I guess you can kind of loosen the shoulders a bit and really launch yourselves for a top 2 push. Yeah,
absolutely. It's going to be a very exciting week.
Yeah, no doubt. So score prediction or confidence of a result against Ipswich?
Oh, I want to say 1-1, but I wouldn't be surprised if we pinch it. So maybe I'll revise it. Let's go City 1-0.
Nice one. Yeah, look, to be honest, I'd absolutely take a draw. It puts us 1 point closer to the top 2. It doesn't drop us too far off the pace either. So I'd happily take a draw. Yeah, look, maybe 2-1, snatching it with a McBurney goal right at the end would do me just about. But look, it's, as you say, it's going to be an exciting week to come. 2 massive games to look forward to. And so thank you for previewing these with me. Thank you for being here for the episode.
Mate, my pleasure, Alex. I look forward to seeing what the next 7 days brings, because we might start to get very far ahead of ourselves if we do collect 6 points.
It'll certainly be crazy if we do pick up the 6 points, and hopefully that's the case. And we'll be back next week to chat all about these 2 games. So thank you everyone for listening in, and until next time, come on City.